Hi there, this is Andrew. This is the fifth of my series of episodes on the Move Shoot Move. This time I've taken the lid off the Move Shoot Move, which is something that I don't mind doing. I've had mine for close to 2 years now. If yours is under warranty, you probably don't want to do this. But I thought it would be useful to show people how the thing works internally and what happens when the unit is overloaded. So first of all, we have here a DC motor that's driving the whole mechanism. So we have the motor itself is here. On the back of the motor is an encoder. So that sends pulses to the controller board here multiple times each rotation of the motor. And the controller here can then know precisely how far the motor's moved over a given period of time. So that way it can regulate the speed of the motor to do the tracking. On the front of the motor here is a gearbox, which gives you a high reduction ratio. Then we've got two gears here which transfers, that's a 1-to-1. That transfers down to a worm drive. So there's a worm screw here that engages in a worm wheel, which is under this plate here. And that drives the actual mechanism. Now there's a few things here that are worthy to note, and I'll just unwind this a little bit. You've got this spring down the end here. So this whole mechanism will move like that, okay, and that changes the engagement between the worm screw and the worm wheel. Now that's probably put there because the design or construction of worm wheels and worm screws tends to have a bit of variation. So if you had that screw tight up against the wheel in one spot, if the wheel was slightly eccentric, then it's going to bind when it gets around to a tighter spot. So we need a little bit of wiggle room to allow the thing to work. Too much wiggle room and we end up with a problem that as the load on the mechanism changes, the worm screw can actually ride up the teeth and change the angle of engagement, and that tends to give you poor tracking. And it'll change between whether your load is directly over the top or off to one side or the other. So we've got that spring, which gives you that little bit of wriggle room. It's limited by a slot under the screw, but if you overload the Move Shoot Move, you can still basically force the wheel to skip over teeth on the worm, and that's going to damage it in time, but it is a safety mechanism. Right at the top though, we have a grub screw, which you access through this with this Allen key from the outside. This is actually the bottom of the Move Shoot Move, and that limits how far you can move. So if I leave it like there, I've got full travel, but if I wind that in so that screws are touching against the motor, I've got no movement at all there. So what I'm trying at the moment is wind it in until it touches and then back it off about half a turn, so I've got that little bit of adjustment range. Now the thing is that's still a bit loose, so in transit that screw could move. So it's worth checking it from time to time. Now maybe the Move Shoot Move people will have a recommendation as to how much clearance you should have there, but I'm just going with half a turn at the moment, and I might put some sort of goo or something like that on that screw to just stop it from wriggling around. But that's how the thing works internally. So you've got your controller board there, the battery connects in there, the battery's in the lid that I've taken off, so there's the battery there. You've got your encoder here, which monitors the position of the motor itself, the gearbox, onto the worm, and around it goes.